This week, we delve into the sinister world of the Atlanta Boogeyman, a notorious serial killer who terrorized the city with a series of brutal murders. Trigger warning, we're going to be talking about killing of children in this one, so if this one isn't for you, we totally understand and we'll catch you next week. Known for his elusive nature and chilling modus operandi, the Atlanta Boogeyman left a trail of fear and devastation that still haunts the city today. Join us as we investigate the grim details of his crimes, the relentless hunt for justice, and the lasting impact on the victims' families and the community. Prepare yourself for a journey into one of the darkest corners of Atlanta's history.
I'm Sammy.
And I'm Nicole.
And we are Spooky Sleuths.
Hey guys.
Hello.
Welcome back to Spooky Sleuths. Today we are going to talk about one of the most screwed up individuals.
Yes.
And like I said before, this is going to involve child murders and
some, I think, one case of child essay.
Yeah, so if this is not something that you are in the right headspace to listen to, that's okay, and we'll catch you next week. Our story begins with Wayne Williams, who was born May 27th, 1958 in Atlanta, Georgia. He was born to Homer and Faye Williams, both teachers in the Dixie Hills area of Atlanta. By all accounts, Wayne was a normal child, but said to be very bright. They usually are.
They are. They're bright and charming. Also, I love the name Faye. I just think that is so beautiful.
It's very pretty.
It's if I ever get another dog, I'm going to name her Faye.
Are you?
Yeah. Maggie and Faye.
Some of his teachers and classmates even described him as a virtual genius.
Well, that's interesting.
Right. He graduated high school from Douglas High School and decided he wanted to be a DJ. He actually began a small amateur radio station out of his parents' house. Wayne also would frequent the radio stations WIGO and WAOK to start making important connections in the business.
A-okay.
Oh, man, I was hoping we could skate through it. We could not. She would not let us. He was even featured in Jet Magazine with a member of the Federal Communications Commission. Like, he had it going on. Right. He did enroll in college at Georgia State University, but he was only enrolled for a year before dropping out. College isn't for everyone.
No.
But this is when Wayne started to really lose direction in his life. Wayne was bouncing between careers from radio work to record production to talent scouting to an obsession with police work.
Oh.
Right?
That's like everything is media related and then police work.
Right. You'd think it'd be like journalism, like if you wanted to like intertwine the two. He even did freelance photography work. The sad part is, Wayne's constant changing of professions cost his parents a lot of money. They were the ones funding all of his different ventures. They even had to file for bankruptcy.
And his parents were educators. They weren't rolling in the dough.
Right. Wayne did begin to gain a reputation as a liar.
Oh, no.
He would tell impressive stories about himself that were far too outlandish to be true. There was also the rumor going around that he was gay, which in the 70s and 80s was still really taboo. Mm-hmm. It has never been proven that he was gay. In 1981, Wayne had his first run-in with the police. Remember how I said he had an obsession with police work?
Yeah.
Well, he purchased a police scanner, a badge, and a dark vehicle, and would drive around pretending to be a cop, impersonating a police officer.
That is a lot of work to not get paid for it, number one. And two, homeboy, you're going to get caught.
And at that point, at least in our research, he didn't have any, priors or anything.
Right.
So why didn't you just go to the academy?
Right. He didn't seem like the kind that wanted to work for things, though. As much as he bounced around.
Right. He would stop kids on the street and apparently tell them to get off the street or he would lock them up. Around 3 a.m. on May 22nd, 1981, the police stopped Wayne while driving his dark car. He was let go at this point, but he wasn't far from the police minds. The late 70s and 80s would see the loss of 29 young black kids. Most of the kids that went missing were males, and all were found brutally murdered. In the summer of 79, 2 black boys went missing, Edward Hope Smith, age 14, and Alfred Evans, age 13. Edward was missing for 7 days before he was found, and Alfred was missing for 3. Both boys were found in a vacant lot on Niskey Lake Road in Atlanta. The police actually didn't think much of these murders, calling them drug-related.
What?
With kids?
13-year-old. I mean, I guess some kids get involved in it early, but I feel like they could have looked further into it.
Right, like, oh, it's drugs. What? Had the police acted at this point, they might have been able to stop the rest of the murders.
Right.
2 more black kids were found murdered over the next few months. The next 2 were 14-year-old Milton Harvey and 9-year-old Yusef Bell. Both were strangled to death. Both children were loved by their communities, and they were heartbroken with the loss.
Right.
The police were not willing to make any connections between them. 2 more black children were found dead by March of 1980. How are you not connecting dots?
So we have 6 black kids that are dead.
And no connections. 4 young boys and 2 girls had been found at this point, but there would be no arrests in the case until a year and 23 young innocent victims later.
That is awful.
By June of 1980, the police had absolutely no leads and were no closer to finding the killer. This is when the FBI got involved in the case.
Okay.
They were working on an abduction of a 7-year-old girl when the Atlanta Police Department and Georgia Bureau of
Investigation.
I'm trying here, okay? The Georgia Bureau of Investigation asked the FBI to help. They wouldn't officially be given permission until November that year. They had over 24 agents working on this case.
I feel like that's a lot. I mean, not enough, clearly, but I feel like that's a lot for probably limited resources.
I was going to say, that's a lot for the amount of resources they probably
Yeah.
had. In the meantime, Wayne was still out there and still killing kids. One victim was a 10-year-old named Jeffrey Mathis, who was abducted on his way to the corner store to get a loaf of bread. He and his mom were actually watching the news reporting of the crime the day before, and she warned her son not to interact with strangers. His mom remembers him saying, "Mama, I don't do that. I don't talk to strangers." He'd be found a year later deceased.
That's really sad.
That is terrible. These crimes were clearly an attack on black youth.
Right.
But there was little connecting the murders other than that. There was no clear method of murder used, as Wayne bounced between strangulation, stabbing, bludgeoning, or even shot. With the police not connecting the murders together, the victims' families started to speak out. They formed the Committee to Stop Children's Murders to act as a coalition to hold accountability for the lack of investigation being done to find the murderer.
Go parents. Go families.
It shouldn't have to come to that.
No, it shouldn't. But they advocated for their children. And they
That's a
shouldn't have
blessing.
to.
Right.
But thankfully they did.
It was after this that the police increased the size of their task force and increased the reward money for identifying the murderer. Then came some community members who wanted vigilante justice.
Of course.
They patrolled the neighborhoods carrying bats and searching for clues to solve the case. I'm not saying I blame them. I'm just saying there's ways to handle things.
Right. But at the time, you know, they probably thought, well, the police aren't doing anything.
Somebody needs to.
Yeah.
Right, I get it. Although this committee opened up the eyes of the police, the killings didn't stop. One of the children was a tourist from Cleveland, Ohio. Because we feel it's important to mention each of these young children and a few adults who were murdered without any regard to the future they may have had, here's just a brief list of the rest of the unfortunate victims. Angel Lanier, a 12-year-old girl who was found strangled, essayed, and tied to a tree. Eric Middlebrooks, a 15-year-old boy who was found dead by blunt force trauma behind a tavern. Christopher Richardson, a 12-year-old boy who was on his way to the public pool when he disappeared. LaTanya Wilson, a 7-year-old girl who was taken from her home while her family slept.
Oh my gosh.
That is scary. I mean, all of this is scary,
Right,
but from home,
That's not him picking up someone off the street, which is awful and horrifying. But going into her home while her parents were asleep?
Aaron Weich, a 10-year-old boy who was found near a railroad trestle, which the police thought he initially fell from. His mother protested that he was afraid of heights and would not have went up the trestle unless he was scared or running from someone. Anthony Carter, a 9-year-old boy who was found stabbed in a warehouse. Earl Terrell, a 10-year-old boy who was also on his way to the pool and found next to Christopher Richardson. Clifford Jones, a 13-year-old boy from Cleveland, Ohio, who was found strangled beside his shopping center dumpster.
Could you imagine you go on vacation and that happens to your kid?
No.
That is horrifying.
It is. I couldn't imagine. I don't want to imagine, or I'll spend my whole vacation obsessing.
Yeah.
Darren Glass, a 10-year-old boy whose body has never been recovered. Charles Stevens, a 12-year-old boy who was found suffocated in a trailer park 5 miles away from his home. The police collected a green fiber from this scene.
Oh, that's good.
Aaron Jackson, a 9-year-old boy who was found strangled on a riverbank. His father found out by watching the news and calling the police to identify his son.
Oh, my heart breaks for him.
That's traumatizing. Patrick Rogers, a 16-year-old boy who was found with a head injury after being dropped from a bridge above the Chattahoochee River. Luby Jeter, a 14-year-old boy who was selling car air fresheners to make some extra money, was found strangled in a wooded area. Terry Pugh, a 15-year-old boy who was found strangled on the side of the road. Patrick Baltazar, an 11-year-old boy who was found strangled behind an office park. The police found fibers at this crime scene as well.
So he seems to be getting a little bit sloppier.
Curtis Walker, a 13-year-old boy who was suffocated and found partially submerged and caught on a log near the bank of the South River. Joseph Bell, a 15-year-old boy who was found in the South River. Timothy Hill, a 13-year-old boy who died from asphyxiation in the Chattahoochee River. Eddie Duncan, a 21-year-old who was the first adult victim of Wayne. At this point, there was a citywide curfew for children, so Wayne most likely shifted his target to younger men who were smaller. Eddie apparently had a mental disability.
Oh, so he probably didn't. He probably knew better, but was more easily targeted.
Persuaded, right.
Yeah.
Larry Rogers, a 20-year-old who was found in an abandoned apartment building. This is really difficult to go through and just list all of these.
I know, but I think it's important.
I think so too. I'm just saying, like, this is hard. I'm sorry for anyone listening and watching. Bill McIntosh, a 23-year-old who was found in the South River. Jimmy Ray Payne, a 21-year-old who was found in the Chattahoochee River by 3 boys who were fishing.
Oh, those poor boys.
John Porter, a 28-year-old who was found stabbed in an abandoned lot. Police didn't think he was a victim at first because he had different fibers on him than the other victims.
Oh, okay.
William Barrett, a 17-year-old who was strangled. Nathaniel Cater, a 27-year-old who was found in the Chattahoochee River by fishermen. Nathaniel was the final victim.
How hard were you trying not to say Chattahoochee?
Listen, the whole time I was just thinking, way down yonder in the Chattahoochee. But I knew it would be really inappropriate to laugh.
Yeah.
This is not because I think it's funny. It's because I am so uncomfortable. And also Chattahoochee is funny.
I kept typing Chattahoochee, and I had to correct myself. So that's why I thought you may have been trying not to say that.
No, but I was still stifling down the uncomfy giggles.
Yeah.
Okay. On May 22nd, 1981, the police had a break in the case. The FBI and Atlanta police were splitting into groups to monitor the 14 bridges in Atlanta that crossed the Chattahoochee River. A group of authorities who were conducting surveillance heard a loud splash over one of the bridges at 2:52 a.m. They saw a car speed across the bridge, turn around in a parking lot, and come back over the bridge. Of course, with the suspicious activity, they pulled the driver over.
Right.
It was, in fact, Wayne Williams. They didn't have probable cause, so they had to let him go. But they did happen to get a couple fibers from Wayne's car.
Okay.
When Nathaniel was found 2 days later after their encounter with Wayne, they decided to take a closer look at him. When the police questioned Wayne, he was not doing himself any favors. He didn't have a strong alibi and had that run-in with the police for impersonating a police officer, so he was already on the radar. He also failed multiple polygraph tests. Now, polygraphs are not the most accurate tools as we know today. In fact, most courts do not allow them as admissible evidence. They aren't reliable, as people can pass while lying and fail while telling the truth. They just aren't a good way to solve crimes.
I am so anxious and so nervous all the time. If I took a lie detector test, I would fail every time, probably.
Absolutely. Wayne Williams was arrested on June 21st, 1981. While it is believed that he killed all of the previously mentioned children and adults, he was only convicted of 2 murders, Nathaniel Cater and Jimmy Payne. They didn't have enough evidence to take him to trial for the other murders, but they did say in court during his trial that he was suspected to be the perpetrator. A lot of people don't believe that Wayne is the actual killer, though. Some even believe that an infamous hate group that wears white sheets was responsible and set Wayne up to take the fall. The police state that Wayne used his profession as a talent scout to lure the children to him, then he would abduct and murder them. He received life in prison.
Okay.
One theory behind the hate group being responsible for the murders is that many law enforcement members at that time belonged to this hate group.
Oh.
Not all of the victims' families believe that Wayne is the culprit either. Yusuf Bell's mother, Camille, was one of the family members who began the committee we talked about earlier. She doesn't think Wayne killed her son. In fact, she stated that Wayne should be counted as the 30th victim of the Atlanta slayings. So what do you think? Do you think Wayne is innocent and the hate group is to blame? Let us know in the comments below.
I don't know what I think. I don't think he really has the background of being a serial killer.
Right.
But, I mean, if he had the fibers, if their fibers matched, that's linking. I don't know. I think it's pretty messed up that they got a conviction when they brought up victims that he wasn't on trial for.
Yeah,
I
how
think
is that legal?
persuaded the jury.
Yeah.
And as we know, like you said, lie detector tests are not accurate. So if that was used as evidence against him, would he have the same outcome today?
Right.
What I'm wondering.
And did they even dig deep enough to be for sure that, like, honestly, in that time, a conviction doesn't necessarily mean it's legitimate.
It is a little bit suspicious that the killing stopped after he was arrested. I will say that. But I don't know. I'm not convinced either way.
I'm not either. It's just, it's wild. I mean, that is a lot of murdered children.
Yeah. And I see where people are coming from with the hate group theory too.
Especially in that time.
Yep. Atlanta, Georgia. At that time, you have members of law enforcement involved with that hate group. I could see it.
And I can also 100% believe that the police dragged their feet.
Right.
Through this whole thing. Let us know what you guys think down in the comments below. If you made it all the way to this part,
put a bridge emoji.
Yes, put a bridge emoji. Give a bridge emoji. I apologize for my inappropriate Chattahoochee giggles.
We hope that after all these years that the families of the victims have found some peace. Make sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also check us out over on Instagram and TikTok at Spooky Sleuths Pod, where we regularly post and go live. Come say hi to us when we're live.
And on that note, stay spooky, friends.
friends.